Hey, how's it going? Ben here. Great to see you again. Thanks for tuning in. In this video, we're going to be talking about buying a motorcycle here in Thailand. So continuing on this theme of driving in Thailand, this video is about buying a motorcycle here in Thailand. So previously we made a video about how to get your Thai driving license for your bike or your car. So I'll leave a link to that video in the top corner of this video, because probably if you're going to be buying a motorcycle, you'll also want to get a driving license. And we did make a video about that last week, so I'll leave a link to it here and maybe in the description as well. This video though is on buying a motorcycle, so I don't have too much to say. Buying a motorcycle is pretty simple. However, I thought I would give it a bit of an overview because there are a few things that might be different. There are a few things that you should definitely need to know perhaps, so I'll try and get those across, especially towards the end of this video. We're going to be talking about the documentation, so like some of the forms and how to register the bike in your name. So if you're interested in that, then stay tuned to the end of the video, because that's what we'll get into then. We'll start with looking at different routes of where to go to buy a motorcycle. So we'll look at buying a new motorcycle, we'll look at buying a second-hand motorcycle, and I'll give you a few of my thoughts and opinions on that. I'm making this video because I think there is a fair bit of information that you should know before you buy a motorcycle in Thailand that perhaps you don't know if you're a foreigner living here like myself. I did go through the process of buying a motorcycle myself. I own a little Honda Zuma X that you may have seen if you watch this video a lot. It's been in a couple of my videos. And yeah, I'm very fond of it, but buying it was actually a bit of a challenge. There were a few things I didn't really know, didn't really understand, and a few things that I may have done differently if I could go back in time and knew what I know now. So let's get into it, and I'll try and give you an overview of buying a motorcycle here in the Kingdom of Thailand. Alright, so just to say the title of this video once more, buying a motorcycle in Thailand. That's what we are talking about today. So, as I'm sure you're already well aware, there are probably two main routes you can go when buying a motorcycle here in Thailand. You can buy new or buy second-hand. So let's talk about buying a new motorcycle for a few moments here. So some of the key points. First, buying new is safe. So if you're considering whether you should buy new or buy second-hand, one thing to bear in mind is that it is much safer to buy new. What I mean by that is buying from like a big company like Honda, from a respected dealership like a Honda shop or a Yamaha, whichever brand you choose. If you go to the showroom, one of the many showrooms, many garages out here in Thailand that sell Hondas or Yamahas or Vespas or whatever you're after. Honda is probably one of the most common motorcycle brands here in Thailand that I see, so that's why I keep mentioning Honda, and a few of the pictures are from Honda garages. That's just because it seems to be the biggest brand out here, so you may be getting a Honda if you do come out here. So buying new is much safer. You know, obviously it's a new motorcycle, it's less likely to go bad, it's less likely to have faults. If it does have faults, then you can take it back to the garage where you bought it. It may come with like a warranty, obviously all that kind of good stuff. So it is much safer to buy new. There's a lot less risk involved with buying new, so that's something to definitely bear in mind if you're buying a motorcycle here in Thailand. And it's pretty easy. It's very easy buying a new motorcycle. All you have to do obviously is go to a showroom and hand over the cash. That's pretty much it. Also, they'll handle a lot of the paperwork, documentation, and maybe even will be able to register the bike in your name for you without you having to do it yourself at the Land and Transport Office. So there are a lot of perks to buying a new motorcycle from a showroom. Yeah, it could be much safer and much easier, I'd say. Also, yeah, like I said, you may come documented. So you'll have all the receipts from the motorcycle. You may get like a warranty. You'll be able to take it back for repairs. You'll know the full history of the motorcycle. They'll also probably be able to help you with the documentation of getting your name as the registered owner of the motorcycle. I think that a lot of showrooms do offer that as a service. And that's a little bit challenging, although we'll talk about doing it yourself later, because it is very possible. It's not too difficult to do it yourself. But it is another perk of buying a new motorcycle. They may offer a lot of the documentation being done for you. And finally, it is more expensive. So this isn't a positive. This is one of the factors of buying a new motorcycle. you're obviously going to be paying more for a new motorcycle, so it is more expensive to go this route. So you probably knew all that already. That's probably not revolutionary information for you. But yeah, I thought I would point out some of the key things that I've thought about when buying a motorcycle, or what I think looking back at my experience of buying a motorcycle. I would probably actually buy new if I could go back in time, but I can't, so I didn't. The reason why I didn't at the time was because I wasn't sure how long I was going to be staying in Thailand. So knowing what I know now, knowing that I'm planning to stay here for a long period, I would definitely go back and buy a new motorcycle. The reasons why I would go back and buy a new motorcycle is obviously it probably lasts longer. If I bought a new motorcycle, I would have probably had to do less repairs. If I'd bought a new motorcycle, I'd probably also have a better bike if I'd bought a new motorcycle. So yeah, like I said, I would go back in time and buy a new motorcycle, probably, if I could. But if you're only here for a short time, there's probably not that big of a need to be doing so. And it really does depend on what you need the bike for, how long you want the bike for, and what are your requirements from the motorcycle. So yeah, it is really personal choice. But I thought I would kind of outline a few of the points. If this is your first time buying a motorcycle, maybe you would find some of that information useful. And if you were wanting to buy a new motorcycle here in Thailand and you were wondering where to go, well, the easiest thing to do is to go on Google Maps. So yeah, I just typed in Honda motorcycle dealership in Bangkok, and you can see this Google map is absolutely littered with dealerships or showrooms or garages that sell the motorcycles. So yeah, that is probably where I'd start if I went to buy a new motorcycle. Like I said, Honda is a massive motorcycle brand out here in Thailand. I'd say most of the motorcycles on the street, most of the scooters, the sort of smaller bikes I'm kind of talking about today, which are much more common, and which is what I have. So yeah, most of them are Hondas. Yamaha's also got a lot of bikes out there in the streets, but yeah, I thought I'd focus kind of on Honda. But yeah, this is just an example anyway, so if you wanted to know where to go to a dealership, then yeah, just jump on Google Maps. And you'll probably end up someplace like this. So this is a picture of a showroom that I found online of a Honda Big Wing. I probably don't need to show you this, but I thought I would just give you an idea of the kind of place you would be going to if you were buying a new motorcycle here in Thailand, show you what it would look like, because maybe if you've not been to Thailand, you wouldn't know. But yeah, so this is the kind of place you would head to go and buy your new motorcycle. And yeah, you can go online if you are interested in seeing the prices. So this is the Honda shop in Thailand. You can jump over here and get an idea of the bikes and of the specs, and most importantly of the prices of the motorcycles. So I thought we could have a quick look at one of the most common motorcycles. So this is a great bike. This is a Honda Click. Actually, the first bike that I was using out here, I was renting, was a Honda Click. They're great bikes. A ton of them on the road. They're probably the most common bike you'll see. Yeah, and just to give you an idea of what a new Honda Click price is, they're listed online for around 51,400 Thai baht. So yeah, they are quite expensive, as you'd expect probably for a new motorcycle. Like I said, this is a pretty good motorcycle. But later in the video, we'll have a look at some second-hand motorcycles, some second-hand Clicks, and you can compare the price of them. So yeah, you are going to be paying more obviously for the new motorcycle, and you can obviously go online and have a look at the different prices and the different bikes available in Thailand if you wish. So just head over to the Honda or Yamaha website, whatever you wish. So that does sum up buying a new motorcycle in Thailand. I didn't have a lot to say. I thought I would just brush over it a little bit. I think I have more information on buying a second-hand motorcycle. That's the route I went through, and probably will be the route you go through, especially if you want to save a bit of money. Most people are probably buying second-hand, but I thought we would go over buying a new motorcycle and sort of kind of the practice that would go along with that. Like I said, if you do buy a new motorcycle, there are a ton of benefits to that. And especially if you're new to Thailand, they'll sort out all the documentation and all of that kind of good stuff that would be a little bit challenging if you were new to the kingdom. Also, you're probably not going to be able to get any finance. If you're a foreigner living in Thailand, it would be much harder to get a loan to borrow the money and pay it in installments. Although it is possible, I do know some people who've worked here for quite a few years, had a partner, and were able to get some kind of finance on a new motorcycle. So it is possible, especially if you're like married and you've been out here for a while and you work here, you've got a work permit and that kind of thing. If you are in that position, then you probably would be able to get finance, although it still probably wouldn't be that easy, and you would also need your partner's help. What I'm saying is if you were married to a Thai citizen, you probably would be able to get finance. But if you're out here, you're single, you've not been here long, if you don't have a work permit, maybe you're not working, it will be very difficult to get finance to buy a motorcycle. So they would probably expect you to pay in cash up front, so you may have to bear that in mind. It is a challenge getting finance out here. Alrighty, that's probably enough on new motorcycles. Let's get into buying a second-hand motorcycle in Thailand. So this is way more common, I'd say. Most people I know come out here and buy a motorcycle, buy second-hand. You do save quite a bit of money. There's also a ton of motorcycles in Thailand, so there's a massive market of second-hand motorcycles. So yeah, it's not that difficult, although there are risks involved and it can be a little bit of a challenge. So we'll try and break it down a little bit about buying a second-hand motorcycle. So let's go over some of the sort of key points about buying a second-hand motorcycle. So it is cheaper. Obviously, that's one of the big benefits of buying a second-hand motorcycle. It's obviously going to be quite a bit cheaper than a new motorcycle. And the older you go, the more second-hand it is. Maybe if you go to third-hand, fourth-hand, you're going to get cheaper and cheaper motorcycles. You can get really, really cheap motorcycles if you're not bothered at all. If you don't mind an old motorcycle that maybe has a few problems. You probably could get a motorcycle as cheap as around 10,000 baht for something that does run, but maybe not every day. But yeah, you probably could get a running, very old, very basic motorcycle for around 10,000 baht. That is a little bit on the extreme cheap end. I don't really know too many people who've done that. The first motorcycle I actually looked at when I was looking to buy a motorcycle was about I think it was 12,000 Thai baht. It was a really old Honda Scooby. But when I went to look at it, it didn't even start with the electric starter. You had to kickstart it. And yeah, I was like, I don't want those kind of problems in the morning when I was setting off to work. So I started to look for something a little bit newer. And that's what I ended up doing. So I ended up paying around 20,000 Thai baht. So I think for 20,000 Thai baht, you could get a decent motorcycle, maybe like 4 or 5 years old. So yeah, you probably would be looking to spend around that price, although you can go cheaper. And especially if you know someone who's leaving Thailand, oftentimes a lot of foreigners buy motorcycles from other foreign people who are leaving Thailand and are just trying to get a quick sale. That's probably when you're going to get the best price for a bike. But yeah, I'd say around 20,000 Thai baht is a good price to aim for. And when I say that, I'm talking about a very basic, like sort of scooter, small engine, 4 or 5 years old. So you could probably get something reasonable for that price. You could obviously go cheaper if you just want to like farm run around for much cheaper. So, but I will say this, sometimes the cheaper bikes don't come with the green book. And the green book is the vehicle register where you'll be getting your name to prove you're the owner. Now, if it doesn't come with the green book, that's a big risk because you're not the owner then. You can't be registered as the owner. You would get in trouble if you maybe got stopped by the police. If you had an accident, you won't be covered by any type of insurance or anything like that if you don't have your name in the green book. So be careful if you are going to the cheaper end. Make sure they have they're registered and they've been taxed in the last few years and all that kind of thing. Otherwise, you may run into problems actually out on the road. So yeah, secondhand is obviously going to be cheaper. It is riskier. Obviously, there are a lot of risks involved with buying a second-hand motorcycle, especially if you're buying it off someone, another individual, rather than like a showroom or a motorbike sales place. There are like shops that sell second-hand motorcycles. That's a little bit less risky than buying it off some random person you've seen listed a motorcycle online or you've heard about who's selling one. And all I mean is, you know, if you're not that familiar with motorcycles, like I'm not, I didn't really know what I was looking for. I was pretty lucky, I guess, that I didn't have any major issues with the motorcycle I bought because I didn't 100% know what I was looking for. You obviously need to check like everything, like check the brakes, check the condition of the wheels, all that kind of basic stuff. Try and check if it's not leaking any oil or anything like that. But yeah, if you're not like a mechanic, if you don't have any experience buying vehicles or you don't have a great deal of buying second-hand vehicles, it is much riskier buying second-hand. Because maybe you don't really know what to look for, maybe you don't know any red flags that would tell you not to buy this motorcycle. So yeah, you do have to take a lot more care when buying a second-hand motorcycle, and it is obviously a bit more riskier than buying new. Buying second-hand is also a little bit more difficult. So it could be easy, you could go to like a shop or a garage that has some second-hand motorcycles. Maybe that would be pretty simple, pretty straightforward. However, like browsing websites, looking for deals on Facebook and other marketplaces online, It is a bit difficult, and it's also like difficult in that maybe the pictures aren't correct, maybe some of the information isn't correct, maybe you have to speak with someone, you have to deal with the previous owner, which is quite difficult. You have to do all the paperwork and documentation yourself, make sure that the seller has given you all the right documentation when you're buying. So yeah, it can be a lot more difficult buying secondhand, I think. Okay, so what would I do if I was going to buy, or if I was looking to buy, or I was in the market for a secondhand motorcycle? Well, I'd probably start once again with the showrooms. So it is actually worth going to like the big showrooms, the Honda dealerships, or whatever you're looking for, and put your brand in. I feel like I'm doing a Honda advert, I keep mentioning them. But yeah, go to the showrooms and you can ask them yourself, do you have any secondhand motorcycles? Lots don't, but some do. And I think it's a good idea to check anyway, because you will get decent bikes at the like showrooms that are secondhand sometimes. There's also like obviously shops and dealerships that deal with secondhand vehicles, so maybe they're a good place to also go and have a look. And in case you were wondering, you may need to learn a little bit of Thai. I thought this might be useful to share with you. So secondhand in Thai is me song. Me means hand, song means two, so it's essentially the same sentence structure as it is in English. Secondhand is a similar phrase, just translated to Thai. So yeah, if you would ask like me, motorcycle, me song, that would mean like, do you have any secondhand motorcycles? So yeah, I thought that might be a useful phrase to learn. Maybe, maybe not. There probably would be someone who speaks English, especially if you're going to a dealership, but if you're going to like a smaller showroom, there may not be. So maybe you just want to know, do you have any secondhand motorcycles? You could say like me, me song, like, and then that would kind of probably let them know what you were looking for at least, and then you could get pointed in the right direction, because it might not be that obvious. Those vehicles in the showrooms or in the garages or in the shops would probably be a little bit on the expensive side of the secondhand motorcycle market. If you wanted to go a bit cheaper and buy directly from someone else, I would actually recommend going to the Facebook marketplace. So if you're in Thailand already, just jump over to the Facebook marketplace and you would see sort of listings that aren't too far from you. So this is just a screen grab of my Facebook. I went over to the marketplace, typed in Honda Click, that was the motorcycle we're looking at a little bit, and you can see quite a few have jumped up. One of them on here isn't actually Honda Click, but the rest seem to be. You can see one here. And for 37,000 Thai baht, that's quite expensive, but it is. It looks like one of the bigger engined Honda Clicks, so maybe that's the reason why. But it is still quite a bit cheaper than buying a new one. But yeah, like I said, over here there's a 20,000 Thai baht Honda Click. It is quite an old one, 125 engine. But yeah, I think that's a reasonable price. I think a lot of motorcycles will be around that 20,000 Thai baht in the second-hand market for sort of a smaller scooter, that kind of a reasonable price to pay. You can see the rest of the listings kind of have like a random number, 1 baht, 200 baht. That probably because you have to contact the seller. So yeah, maybe you would be able to contact them and get like how much they want for it, and you might even be able to get a much better deal doing that. But yeah, this is a good place to find a motorcycle. This is actually how I found my motorcycle. I saw someone listed it on the Facebook marketplace, contacted them. They actually were able to drive it around to me, and I took it for a test drive and all that kind of stuff. So buying on Facebook Marketplace isn't a bad idea if you're confident enough to do that. Obviously, there's a lot of risk involved with this, but it is a place you could go to and have a look and get an idea of the prices of the second-hand motorcycle marketplace out here in Thailand. Also, while you're on Facebook, check out like the Facebook groups like Buy and Sell, fill in the blank. So maybe if you're in Bangkok, you would look for like the Buy and Sell Bangkok. Maybe if you're in Krabi, Buy and Sell Krabi, Phuket, whatever. This is just an example of a group I'm in. I used to stay on Koh Samui, so I'm actually in the group Secondhand, Buy or Sell Koh Samui. And this was just a listing of a motorcycle just to show you that also, as well as the Facebook marketplace, you can be more specific. Look at the groups. There's a lot of groups that sell secondhand stuff, and you will see a lot of listings for motorcycles on there also. So these could be some places where you would go to find a secondhand motorcycle. Alright, let's move on to the duller side of buying anything or doing anything. Let's talk about some of the documentation. So this is the drier section of this video, but it is probably also the most important section of this video. This is the stuff that you may need to know, that you may not know, because it might be a little bit different from your home country, a lot of the documentation here in Thailand. So let's go over that. Alright, so let's have a look at some of the important documentation involved in buying a motorcycle here in Thailand. So first up is the green book. So we have spoke about this, we've mentioned this a little bit before in this video. The green book, and it is literally a small green booklet. It's like a booklet, it's green, that's where the name comes from. And it is the vehicle's like list of registered owners. So if you want to be the registered owner of the vehicle, you would have to get your information printed in this booklet at the Land and Transport Office. And as long as you have all the right documents and forms, you can do that, and you would be the registered owner of the vehicle. It's pretty important to do that if you want insurance to be valid and all that kind of stuff. You must, or there must be a registered owner of the vehicle. So if the bike doesn't come with a green book, that's a pretty big red flag to me. So like I said, it is just a little green booklet. It has all the previous owners. It has like the bike's history in this booklet. I do have one. I don't really want to show it you on the video because there's a lot of like personal information about the bike on it, so I don't think it'd be a very good idea to share that, and I couldn't really find any good pictures online to show you. But it is like a booklet. It's kind of this size, and it's, yeah, like I said, it opens up to about A4 size, and it's just got like the previous owners and the current owners information printed, and the history and the make and model of the motorcycle sort of printed on it. And like I said, you would do all that at the Land and Transport Office. Maybe I'll make a video about that. Let me know in the comment section if you would like to know the process of getting your name put in the green book. If that's something some people are interested in, maybe I will make a video about that separately. I'm not going to go into it right now, but I just wanted to highlight this as a very important document when you're buying a motorcycle in Thailand, is the green book. So as well as the green book, another important document you maybe need to know about is the ownership transfer forms, and you'll want to get that signed by the seller. So this is a form that you would need to take with the green book to the Land and Transport Office, and you would need that signed by the seller. You'll then have to sign it, give over your documents, and then you'll be able to get your name put in the green book. So this is a pretty important document. You have to make sure you get it from the seller. And especially if like you're buying it off someone who's not the previous owner, you'll need to get it signed by the previous owner. So be wary of all that kind of stuff. You can get the form online. You can find it online if you search on Google. You could also get it from your local Land and Transport Office. So yeah, head down there and get the form, or check if the seller already has the form and get them to sign it. Definitely you need that if you want to become the registered owner of the new vehicle. Maybe if you're buying new, maybe if you're buying it from a showroom, even if it's secondhand, maybe they'll do this for you, so maybe you don't need to worry too much about this. But if you are buying secondhand, this is very important that you get all these documents, because you're going to have to do all the work yourself if you want to be the registered owner of the vehicle. So make sure they have the ownership transfer form, or make sure you have it, and make sure you get it signed by the seller while you can, when you meet them preferably. You also need ID of the seller, so you need signed photocopies of the Thai ID card if you're buying from a Thai person, or a passport, so you can get a photocopy of the passport if you're buying from someone who is not a Thai citizen. So once again, this is very important. You will also want to get this photocopy signed, I think. So make sure you get that. Make sure you have a photocopy of the ID card of the previous owner, or the passport if they're not a Thai citizen. Once again, you'll need all of these things if you want to go and become the registered owner of the vehicle. You need to take these documents with you to the Land and Transport Office. Once again, if a showroom or someone else or a salesperson is going to do all this for you, obviously you don't need to worry about it as much. However, once again, if you're buying secondhand, make sure you get all these documents. So you'll need the ownership transfer form signed by the seller, a photocopy of some kind of identification, a Thai ID card if it's a Thai citizen, or a passport if a non-Thai citizen. And you will also need proof of residency. So this is listed online on a lot of the places when you want to become the registered owner of the vehicle. However, it is also said that it's not always required. So maybe you do, maybe you don't need this, but I would definitely try and get it if you can, because you may need it when you want to become the registered owner of the vehicle. So make sure you get some kind of proof of residency. So once again, you'll want to get a signed photocopy of a house registration document if it's a Thai person you're buying the vehicle off. If it's a foreign person, if it's someone who's not a Thai citizen, then you could get a copy of a work permit or a copy of a letter of address from immigration. So obviously those are very important documents, especially if you want to become the registered owner of the vehicle, which you probably will want to if you've gone and bought a new motorcycle or a second-hand motorcycle, whatever. here in Thailand. So yeah, I thought it'd be important to list those and go over them a little bit. Like when you buy a motorcycle, you will hope to have a few pieces of paper, a few documentation. You'll hope that the seller will bring them with them because you're going to need them. It is pretty common knowledge, so if you are buying off someone, they probably will know to get a photocopy of their identification and a few other forms, and they'll probably know to sign them also. But it is good for you to know, because if they don't, then maybe you can request that when you're arranging a meeting or however you're doing it. So yeah, make sure you get all this paperwork done before you hand over the money. Because maybe if you're buying it off a person who's listed a motorcycle online, maybe you won't be able to see them again. Maybe it'll be difficult to contact them again. So you definitely want to get all this documentation done when you're buying the motorcycle at the same time, because it will make things much smoother when you come to go and register yourself as the owner of the vehicle, and you will need all this documentation. So yeah, definitely bear that in mind. Definitely check online, look online about what documentation you need. Make sure that this video isn't dated, and get all the up-to-date information on buying a motorcycle and becoming the registered owner of a motorcycle here in Thailand. All right, well, that does conclude this video. I know this wasn't a particularly long video, but yeah, I did want to do just a little bit of an overview of buying a motorcycle here in Thailand, because I think it can be a little bit challenging, a little bit daunting, especially if you're new to the kingdom. Maybe you'll have a lot of questions. I hope I answered some of those questions. I know when I was looking to buy a motorcycle, I had a lot of questions. I would have potentially found a video like this useful. If you did find this video useful, then please hit the like button. Please consider subscribing if you're living in Thailand or you plan to go and live in Thailand, because I make a lot of videos about that on this channel, so it'd be great to stay in touch with you here. If you have any questions about driving or buying a motorcycle in the Kingdom of Thailand, let me know in the comment section below. I will do my best to answer those questions. If they are questions that I can answer, then I would be happy to do so. As always, I greatly appreciate you watching this video, especially if you made it all the way to the end, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Goodbye.